All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Maize and Brew six-pack, a very special edition with two-time All-American tight end at Michigan, current analyst for the Big Ten Network, calling all sorts of games. When he hopped on, the All-Americans went up 200%, but the handsomeness is up 1,000%. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake Butt.
What's up, guys? It's in the air, baby. I was actually just at a Big Ten teams practice today, and you can kind of feel like the charge in the air that the season's here. God, can't wait.
I cannot wait, man. Can't wait to hear you calling some games this year. First of all, congratulations, because you're a Wolverine and Wolverines are national champions. You were one of the names that we mentioned should be getting just a national championship league, some type of recommendation. Maybe it's just an honorary for what you did for the culture, man. So congratulations. Thanks for what you did in bringing Michigan football back to where it belongs.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's all part of it, like even the bad times led to this, like you got to look at it like that. I even think to the COVID year, like what if Michigan had a little bit more success? Would Jim have done what he did that offseason? Like the fact it was such an ugly year forced Jim to change, forced Jim to go younger with the staff, forced Aiden Hutchinson to stand up and say, I'm absolutely tired of this. So it's kind of funny how that works. Each team has their own potential. Michigan national titles, the potential, but I feel like some of those hard times acted like a springboard for what has happened these past few years.
100%, man. And we look on 2015 very fondly and 2016 as well. And it had to happen a certain way. It couldn't have happened any other way in order to get that national championship.
2016, we had a roster. 2016, yeah. We are pretty much, I don't know what you would remember us for. Not much, but damn, did we have we had 11 guys get drafted and 17 make NFL rosters. And it's just like, that's the one. I was for some reason watching the Ohio State game, and I texted a friend. I'm like, man, it still feels like 1,000 knives being stabbed into my stomach watching that game. Like, oh my goodness, devastating.
It's yeah, I can only imagine how it feels for you, but Jared and I, we look back on that season, it's like it's effortless, the winning in the beginning of the year. Like every game is just in hand, even trailing against Colorado 14-0. We're just like, no, this is fine. And that was a good Colorado team that made the Pac-12 championship that year.
I mean, we dominated. There was a few everything, the thing is that game, the when we were down because of our own doing. Iowa, when we were down, it was because of our own doing. Same thing with Ohio State. I mean, oh my God, the mistakes that were made in that game, And then Florida State was its own deal. But geez, such is life, I guess.
What a fun note to start the pod.
Yeah. Look, on this podcast, though, you're talking to people that remember all that stuff and still live it with you, man. We all haven't gotten over 2016. Like, that's going to be the name of my college fantasy team this year is JT was short. Like, we remember.
Yeah. We guys see the video of Jim Harbaugh with the Barstool guys talking about the 2015 trouble with the snap play. Just once again, our own doing.
Yeah, man.
So.
It is what it is, man. But we've got a hell of a season. We are still currently, Michigan still currently national champions and will be until someone takes it from them. Let's start here, tight ends, because we got a good one. I would say probably the number one tight end in the NFL draft next year, and that's going to be Colston Loveland, the best tight end in the country. We can go any way you want to go with this, but want to just give you the floor to talk about this guy for a moment and what you've seen from him, what he could be this season.
Man, he's just a special football player. And some guys you can just say, man, that's a football player. And that's Colston in the sense hey, in the biggest moments there he is he's one of those guys that always seems to be open, almost like a Julian Edelman type where it's like, how is this guy always open? And there he is. And I just go back to when he was an early enrollee. And this is what people don't understand. And I've been trying to make this be better understood. We get enamored with speed and size and vertical jumping. There is an art to knowing the game of football, and there is an art to creating separation. I never ran faster than a 4.840. I mean, believe that or not, I never ran faster than a 4.840. But I knew the science of getting open. It took me a little while to get there, and then I watched Colston as a true freshman early enrollee, and I'm like, man, this guy just understands it. There's no thinking. It's just part of his game. And now what you've seen is a guy that's put on weight, added size, actually added speed, Always been good with contested catches, continue to refine some of those details. What you have is just a well-rounded tight end that should catch 50 balls a year in the NFL for a decade plus. And again, he doesn't need to be a bruising blocker. Everyone says, well, what about that? The modern NFL game that is not the way the game is going. And and he could still block, but maybe you're playing a team that's a 4-down front and they have a 290-pound defensive end. That's just, you can't have a 250-pound tight end. That's basic physics, from freshman year of high school. That doesn't, but he'll hold his own. You know what I mean? So everything that he's asked to do, he can do at the highest level. He's a first-round pick, in my opinion. And as we look at everything that's lost in Michigan, Tyler Morris is wide receiver 1. Colston's probably wide receiver 1 at this point, and I there is no world where he should have less than 70 targets this season, period. They have got to get him the ball 6 targets a game for the entire season.
With those limited pass catchers and, potentially getting 70 targets this year, a certain Michigan tight end holds the career receiving mark for the position and is 762 yards ahead of Colston Loveland. Are you going to hold him off this year?
That's a good question. There's a few factors, and I think college stats lie to us a little bit. And Evan Ingram, when I won the Mackey, Evan Ingram had probably 40% more stat. He had absurd stats. But the problem is we blew everyone out my senior year. So there was probably 6 games where I didn't play at all in the second half, and we weren't passing the ball. Whereas Evan Ingram's in shootouts and still phenomenal tight end. I'm just saying that as a matter of fact. And I say that because that's something to observe with Colston this year, because as we talk about getting those targets, Michigan's schedule is going to require him to be at his best for the entirety of the season. Man, if you want to beat Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, if you want to get back into that 10+ win range, I'd say that's a fair benchmark to say, man, we need our guy Colston to be about that 700, 800 yard range. So he's on pace. The only reason he won't do that from a career standpoint is he's good, and he'll be a first-round pick at the end of this year. I played 4 years. So there's that volume aspect to the career receptions as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Can't wait to watch him. But also, we rank this just entire group as a top 2 strongest position group on the 2024 team. Obviously, you having an All-American type guy up at the top's helping there. But are we right to hold this depth in that kind of regard? Max Bredesen coming back. Marlon Klein appears that he's just carved out of Germany itself. The young guys as depth that we're really excited about. So there's some dudes there. Are we right in thinking that this depth is there?
Yeah. And the question is, those 3 guys, that's depth. Max is a bit of a unique role, and I think they all complement each other. AJ Barner had a role, and then Colston had a role, and then Max had a role. The question is now is Marlon is talked about like a freak athlete, but blocking is a whole different beast, man. It really is. And Max is a great blocker, but it's a different type of blocking. So the question is can one of these guys, and maybe you get into extra tackle personnel. I don't know. I don't want to limit any of these guys, but you can always throw in an extra offensive lineman which Michigan has done at times to replace that bigger tight end role. But yeah, that's a really, really deep group as you look across the team.
Now, on the opposite end of that, where on the Michigan roster do you think they could use some depth, or where do you think is the shallowest position group this year, which could be the most susceptible to an injury derailing things for their postseason aspirations?
Man, it feels like they have quality depth across the board. Probably safety would be the one with Rod Moore going down, where it's like, okay, you got Quentin Johnson, you got Makari Page, right? What happens, heaven forbid, and guys are going to get beat up throughout the season. Other guys are going to have to step up. That was a really good 3 deep. And now without Rod Moore, depending on when he gets cleared, if he gets cleared, maybe that could be, something to look at. But Michigan, you have good coaches build in natural fluidity, and there's a ton of options in how they can play this defense to help mask that if they are short at certain positions. I think that's one of the qualities of a good team.
Yeah, and kind of speaking to the tight end discussion, the quarterback discussion, we don't have an answer yet on that. It's starting to seem like it might be Alex Orji. I don't know how much you've been around the group and what you've seen from him, but one completed pass up to this point, didn't complete much in the spring game, but we're hearing great things. Now, do you think that he's going to be able to push the ball down the field enough? Obviously, a great defense, great running game. Is that going to be sufficient for this team to get into the playoffs, let alone maybe make some noise in the playoffs?
That's the ultimate question, and I really at this point can't predict. I know I really like Orji as a young man. I think Kirk Campbell. We'll be talking about Kirk Campbell as a coach we heavily underrated across the conference, because the whispers are that guy's intelligence and his ability to teach, that's something that goes extremely underrated for quarterback development. And it seems like he's really bringing guys along, and that can be huge for Orji. He doesn't have to be. JJ didn't even have to be. JJ had a ton more potential than what he even showed last year. And it was clear to those that watched. So he doesn't have to be a guy that throws for 400 yards a game. But when they call on him in a big play action, can he make the teams pay? And then the other question is can these guys downfield win some of these 50-50 balls? Can they create separation? You know, there's pieces of this where it's impossible for me to predict at this point. That week 1 game against Fresno State is going to be absolutely critical, because when Texas comes into town, there's really no room for error. And that's a challenge Michigan hasn't had with an elite opponent early in the season for a few years now.
Yeah, you'd have to go back to like 2018 Notre Dame, I feel like, to really pick one out. You talked about Kirk Campbell, and I want to ask you about another position coach that's really just been kind of the star of the show when other coaches talk about him, and that's Grant Newsome. It's been nothing but praise surrounding him. Only 27 years of age, but he's talked about like he's been in the business for 20 years at this point. You played with Grant. What makes him such a competent coach and leader at such a young age?
Some guys, you can just look at them and you know, we use the word aura these days, right? Like he's got that. You look at him, you're like, man, Grant, you could run for president one day. And I'll tell you the story when his playing career was over. Grant is tough as hell. You know, we're running a crack pull play. He's left tackle against Wisconsin. And as he's pulling around, this Wisconsin DB says, hey, I don't want to hit this guy, and cuts him. And his knee, he's down, he's grabbing his knee, and they bring out the cart, and he's like, I'm an offensive lineman, I'm walking off, you know? So he denies the cart, walks back to the locker room. They get back there and they say, thank God someone had the awareness to check for a pulse in his foot. And they said, there's no pulse. There is significant damage in his knee. That at that point, Grant was in the hospital for like a month. It was very, very scary. That guy chose to walk off the field, you know, out of pure pride. And here he is with significant complications. It's things like that where it's like, it sucks that had to happen. But damn, if that didn't, he already had my respect, but that's a whole different level of respect. And that's who he is as a person. So you can imagine the type of respect his players have for him. And when you talk about the offensive line, now he's coaching the offensive line, you know, that's 5 individuals that have to work as one unit. They speak their offensive lines are kind of cliquey. They speak their own language. They have got to be on the same page. It's one of the most intelligent groups on the team. Grant is going to be an asset. When we talk about all the things they're replacing across the team, offensive line is a big piece of that. Grant, what a great seamless hire to have Sharon climb up the ladder and Grant climb up the ladder as well. And remember, Jim said Sharon will be a head coach one day. He said the same thing about Grant Newsome. I believe that's true.
Yeah, Michigan's offensive line now, really since Sharon Moore's promotion in 2021, and I think it carries over now, is kind of like how I feel with Lincoln Riley and quarterbacks. Like, I just have the utmost faith that Michigan's offensive line is going to be, at minimum, above average just because of Sharon Moore and Grant Newsome in place leading the charge.
These guys played. Like, I've seen Giovanni El-Hadi play a ton of snaps. Yeah. They've been high on Greg Crippen for 3 years now. And he's a big boy. Like, and yet then in comes Olu, in comes Drake Nugent. It's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. You know, Raheem Anderson. I mean, we could go Preby from Northwestern. You know, one of the benefits I have is I get to cover the conference, and I talk to teams about players. I know Nebraska loved Ernest Hausman. I know Maryland loved Jay Sean Barham. I know
Mm-hmm.
Northwestern loved Josh Preeb. So I am not as concerned as other people are about, replacing this offensive line. The question is how good can they be? But I still think this is a top third, definitely a top half offensive line in the conference.
I have to agree with you. Miles Hinton as well, who it seems like has a really high ceiling.
Yes.
There's guys there. I wonder about the depth, but again, like you said, Andy and Jake, that you agreed with, just like the trust in the coaching staff there as well. So you started to kind of talk about the Big Ten. Nobody knows it like you at this point. You are locked in. We kind of wanted to have like a big picture discussion here about who we think might be able to make it to the playoffs. So if you're up for it, we're going to draft it up. So we'll give you first pick. Who do you feel most confident going to the playoffs? We'll go through till we get 12. Maybe we'll go 16, and maybe out of 16, we'll get the 12 that end up in there, or we'll come close. But
no, you guys pick first. You guys pick first.
Ooh.
I'm deferring. You go first. You go
first.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Hit it.
I'll take it. Give me Georgia. Kirby Smart has not lost to an active college.
Oh, we're going on a national scale.
Oh, national scale.
National scale. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hasn't lost to an active college football head coach since 2018.
Okay.
Georgia's in.
Yeah. You want second, or you want to round it out? Get it
now that I get it. Okay, I'll take Texas.
Okay. Yeah. Got you. I probably explained it horribly. Go ahead. Oh, I have to be the one. Give me Ohio State.
Okay. All right. Listen, that's
someone's got to do it. It's the roster.
All right,
is
so
what it is, man.
Playing a little strategy here. We talk about teams you're confident in. One G5 team is making it in. Give me Liberty. They don't play a Power 5 opponent.
Liberty. Fourth pick.
So you can go across the board now, right? Mm-hmm. It becomes a question of, how many from each conference. Like someone's going to win the ACC and get in, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're talking playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, we're talking playoffs.
Notre Dame's schedule is so soft. But there's issues if they don't get in. They can't get a first round bye because they won't win a conference. Notre Dame's getting in as well. That
was one of my locks. That's a great pick. I feel similarly about Penn State. I think that they avoid Michigan, which is just a terrible matchup for them. The defense I do believe in. I'm not the biggest Drew Aller guy, but I think that the schedule sets up for them to be 10-2 at worst.
Wow.
Look at Jared coming in hot. All right. Speaking to Jake's theory about looking at some of the conferences, give me Utah in the Big 12 this year. I really think they're the cream of the crop there. It's Cam Rising's back for year 30. I think they got it.
One of the most underrated programs. Whittingham, one of the most underrated coaches. You turn on the Utah tape, that's a physical, tough team every single year. I really like that pick. I honestly, if you're taking Penn State, I feel much more confident about Oregon at this point. Like roster to roster, I think they're even above Penn State. Quarterback, I love Gabriel even more. I think their offensive line is going to be elite. So for some reason, everyone says, how are these four teams going to adjust to the physicality of the Big Ten? But it's not like the we generalize the Big Ten like they're all the same teams. Like Maryland didn't run ground and pound. You know what I mean? Ohio State didn't even really either. Like Oregon's people are going to have to adjust to their style as well. That roster's freaking loaded. So I'll take the Ducks.
Yeah, that's a good one. They play Michigan, so that was my only thought there. But you're right. The roster is better. All right. This one's a little saucy, but I believe in Kalen DeBoer. Give me Alabama. I think Jalen Milroe. People just look at him as only a runner. I think he's going to be able to push the ball downfield. I like Kalen DeBoer. I think people are really overrating that coaching transition. Obviously, you're going from like the greatest all time, but DeBoer can coach, man. So I think they're going to be good. I like Milroe there.
Yeah.
So no ACC teams have been picked yet, but I feel so weird about the top of the ACC. Like I really like Louisville there. So I'm going to go Michigan. Let's get it home. Someone's got to do it. I'm going to bring them home here.
There it is.
I'm going to take Clemson.
Oh, anti-transfer portal Dabo.
I know. I think they're due, and there's like that yo-yo effect where everyone's been counting them out. I think Clemson returns like 8 of their starting defense as well. So they're a dangerous team. I feel good about them coming out of the ACC. They've been there. All
right, so that's 12. Oh wait, no, I got one more.
Yeah, one more.
All right. I already give me Ole Miss. I'm not quite as high on
Wow.
them as some other team, but I am high on Jackson Dart. I think the continuity of the coaching staff, good quarterback, lots of weapons. There are stars. Like he loaded up in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So I'll take Ole Miss. But yeah, I'm not super confident
Ole
about it.
Miss is
Thought about
loaded.
They are, man. I thought about Miami for a minute too, but I've been burned too many times.
Exactly. I won't touch Miami. I am so out on Miami. I just
Yeah.
what's going to change this year? I don't know. I get it. You had talent. You've had talent in the past. I mean, my goodness, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
It's like
that's the
Texas
thing
in
with
years
them.
past.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like other teams I considered here were Missouri because they have a very favorable
Yeah.
schedule this year in the
Yep.
SEC. Bring back
Yep.
Brady Cook, like Kansas State, like
Kansas
Louisville,
State.
but a lot of teams with question marks, man. But I'm with you, Jake. I can't buy Miami for anything. If you're not going to kneel down to win a football game, like how can I trust you?
Iowa's another. I know people are just gonna Iowa. There's no more East, no more West. Look at their
Yeah.
schedule. Look at it is still a West schedule. Their
Yep.
defense is absolutely loaded. Their offense can't get worse. But like, don't be surprised when we look up and Iowa's 11-1 at the end of the year. So do not be surprised when we look up and they're once again knocking on the door of that conversation.
I've got them at 10-2, man. I think they're going to win a lot of football games. I just don't know if they'll sneak in, but they could be right there. That's a really good point. Like maybe Cade McNamara. I mean, I'm betting better injury luck for them than last year too.
Yeah.
Wasn't the best.
And Phil Parker's a guaranteed 8 wins on defense.
Yep, at least.
Beast. Yeah, I have so much respect for him. All right, so let's run through our 12 there. We had Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, pretty chalk. Notre Dame, Liberty, Penn State. We got a little wild right there in round 2. Oregon, Utah, Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, Ole Miss. I like that list. I'm pretty good with it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good list. I bet we're shooting 85% on that. I bet we're pretty spot on.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna feel pretty good about it. There's always that one team that surprises. I've got my eye on Kansas, who's bringing back a good quarterback, and I think it's a physical team. So there's some other ones, but yeah, I'll be interested to look back on this. All right, Jake, we got you for one more segment. This one will go fast. We do a little rapid fire on here. There's no wrong answers here. So if you can try and answer in 10 seconds, but if not, who cares? It's our podcast. No one's gonna tell us what we can and can't do. You ready for this, my friend?
Let's do it.
All right. Number 1, what former teammate, Michigan or professionally, would you want by your side to navigate a zombie apocalypse or really any post-apocalyptic scenario?
Ben Gideon, 100%, zero hesitation. First off, I mean, he's got brothers in the military. He's one of the smartest guys I know. Has a good knife collection too. And me and him trained together every offseason. So we cooked a ton. We grilled out meats. He'd be the best guy, I think.
Yes. Let's go. Ben Gideon, noted knife fighter. I'm here for this.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2, give us a Big Ten quarterback you believe will outperform expectations this year.
Are people underrating Miller Moss from USC? Like, I feel like a lot of people are out on USC, maybe not out on Miller Moss. I think he can be special. And then maybe another one would be that's definitely flying under the radar. Will Rogers at Washington. What does Jed Fish do? Puts out top 10 passing offenses every single year. Will Rogers is a veteran quarterback. He's going to be in a great system. So I bet he'll surprise some guys as well.
Outside of the big 3 on Michigan's schedule of Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State, what game do you think Michigan fans might be overlooking that could be a little trickier than anticipated?
Going on the road to Washington for that rematch. One, that's a real long road trip, and I think people are really counting out Washington right now when that's a program that's been to the playoffs twice. They are a very solid football team. And Jed Fish, look at what he did at Arizona. The cupboard was a lot more bare when he got to Arizona than Washington. I mean, seriously. So that is always going to be a dangerous team if Jed Fish is the head coach.
Completely agree. And you understood it firsthand in 2015.
You know the man. Yeah.
Jake, if you were playing the NCAA video game and you were playing when it came out, what would your greatest attribute be? I assume it wouldn't be speed if you said you'd only ran a 4.8.
Yeah. I was awareness.
That's good.
Yeah. Understanding zone coverage, man coverage, leverage, how to use my body, like all those little things added up to a lot.
Love this. All right. Give me one food city, one restaurant, or one menu item that you can't wait to experience this season.
I'm excited to go out to Washington, Seattle. Like
Seattle's great.
Especially we're at the end of August, so it's going to be that summertime fall weather. It's a night game.
Yes.
Probably some great seafood out there. Just that whole campus experience, stadium, everything. I can't wait to go experience it.
That's outstanding. Which player do you feel this season most confident will end up in the top 5 of the Heisman voting, going national here?
That will end up in the top 5 of the Heisman. Probably Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers, those two guys for sure. Because I think both their team, for some reason, the Heisman's become a team award as much as it is individual, and both those teams are going to be successful, and both those guys are going to ball out.
I love it. And one last question, Andy, you want it?
Yeah. I'll let you bring it home.
True or false? My bones will have turned to dust before they take the Michigan banners down.
What? Wait, give me this. What's the? I should know this. Is this Jim Harbaugh's? Who said this?
No, like me. Just now.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, dang, is that something Jim had said?
What a great compliment.
Like something he'd say.
Thank you.
True. Yes, true.
Yeah. My man. Man. Outstanding. Jake Butt. Jake, obviously, we're going to watch a ton of you on the Big Ten Network. What do you got going on, man? Promote yourself.
All over social media. Really invested a ton into social media, trying to help people see some of the behind the scenes of playing, broadcasting, all of that. And I've partnered with some companies for some great discount codes. So that always just works out well for people if they're using those companies anyways. But that's it. You could find me on all social media. I respond to comments and story messages and all that good stuff. So don't be shy.
That's why you're the GOAT, man. Your Instagram is a must follow. Been following you some time on there. Do you got a guy that's work? You have to have a guy that's like doing graphics and cutting everything up. I figured you had a guy.
He's a freaking stud. So he makes it easy. It gets busy in the season, and I just record, and he turns those things into like mini movies. They're really fun to watch. I don't know what they look like before he posts them, and I'm like, wow, these look great. So it's fun.
Looking professional, man. Well, we really, really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. You're always very generous with your time. Killing it on the Big Ten Network, man. We're like proud, when we watch you, all Michigan fans, like that's our guy right there. Love to see it, man. You're absolutely tearing it up.
That's family. I appreciate you guys. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Go Blue. Peace.